Absolute Superman issue 8. Jason Aaron writing with Rafa Sandoval on the art. We kind of kick off a new arc here.
So I wasn't here for the last issue.
Oh yeah.
And I thought it was a tough read with all the Brainiac stuff. It might have been also because I was in vacation mode, trying to read it on vacation. So
you would disagree with the assessment that it was the best issue of the book so far?
Yes.
Yeah, both me and Connor said that.
They said it was the best so far?
Yep.
Poof, man, I don't know about that.
Nope. Brainiac's backstory and like what he's up to, all nice and creepy, techno horror. It was great.
Yeah.
It was oozing vibes.
Gotcha. But again, still it's not bad. I just thought it was tough to read with some of the jumping around and whatnot with things. So the fact that we get back to Clark here in the Lazarus shenanigans, I was very welcome. That said, tough to read still doesn't mean bad. I still, there were things in there that I liked. So here, though, the fact that we rebounded back to the stuff I'm already enjoying is good.
I mean, this was a good issue. I did like last issue more, though. I think last issue was so focused and really built up Brainiac for what he is. This issue, on the other hand, obviously evolves a little bit the Ra's al Ghul stuff. We get to see him kind of like running Lazarus Corporation, and he's on a shareholder meeting call while he's killing assassins from the Omega Men that are trying to kill him. And not only that, he throws one of them in the Lazarus pit that he's got up in the building. And then this pit specifically reborns the guy, but as a baby, like as a toddler. And he just takes him over to the balcony and drops this baby to its death.
Cool. The fact that he doesn't stop the share, he's still having the shareholder meeting. He's not like, oh, 1 second, I have to deal with something. He's still doing his entire spiel about running Lazarus and why it's called Lazarus and what his family has done, why he's the demon's head, as he's fighting these Omega Men assassins. And then when he throws the guy into the Lazarus pit and says maximum strength, and it turns him into a baby, and you just think, oh, okay, that's cool. He's talking about how he's never had a son, and then he takes this guy that was just an adult. Like, do you think he's reformed to baby mind, or do you think this guy knows exactly what's going on? Like, he has the mental capacity in the baby body.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think it's just darker and funnier if he is just a baby now. Like, if he doesn't understand. Because if it's if it's still the fully grown man's head in there who's like comprehending that this assassination attempt has failed and he's been thrown to his death, that's one thing. The fact that he's in a child's body is neither here nor there at a certain point. But the idea that this baby just doesn't know what's happening and is dropped off the ledge to its death
He just takes him and goes, yep, you're gone. And then we see that the Lazarus building is over, like, it towers over the Daily Planet.
Yeah, it's in Metropolis.
Which, again, just a reminder of Metropolis.
Yeah, it's kind of a reveal at the end of the scene that this is in Metropolis, because we've not really seen much of Metropolis yet in the book. So this was kind of a coming out party for it.
And it talks about, 200 years ago, they took this from being like a little railroad town to being the most advanced city on Earth and stuff. And, I do like the using of Ra's al Ghul as a Superman villain for right now. Like, I think it's a very inspired choice. So to see him up to this, and him even teasing he doesn't have sons, right? So the daughters are somewhere. So we got Talia, we got Nyssa maybe, I like to see how they interact.
I mean, I don't think that was the point of him saying that, though. I think him saying that he has no son to, continue this through is setting up that in this universe, he's going to want Clark to be his adoptive son. Like, in the same way that in the main universe, he wanted Batman to continue
Bruce,
on the
detective.
Yeah. Also, at one point, he called the shareholders the League of Shareholders, which did give me a chuckle. I'm not going to lie.
It did. No, it did.
So, yeah, that was the Raz stuff. That was interesting. And then back in Smallville, Superman goes to Martha, but Martha's got dementia, doesn't know who he is, freaks out. It's kind of a sad scene. But the big thing here, though, is when he goes back out into the streets of the town, Lois comes up to speak to him, as does the leader of the Omega Men, who we already know is Jimmy as well. Which does make this very interesting of a scene where they're both trying to argue Superman to trust them and go on their side and come with them. and they don't like each other very much. I think what's interesting about this to me, though, is that when, like out of nowhere, Superman shot in the chest with a kryptonite bullet, and it's, it's Christopher Smith, it's the Peacemakers, all that stuff's going on. I think what I really liked about this is this idea that this puts him in a vulnerable position, and immediately Lois and Jimmy have to, like, maybe work together to help him. Now, they kind of, like, pivot away from it by the end of the issue because Lois gets left behind because they don't want her to come in, because they think she'll lead, the Lazarus Corps to them in their hideouts and whatnot, so they don't let her come through the boom tube. But this idea that Lois and Jimmy, like, first start to work together to, like, help Superman is kind of a nice poignant way of, like, starting that relationship off in some way. So, I dug that. I still like the idea as well that Superman came to Smallville to try and, like, find his conscience because he wants to kill Christopher Smith and he knows that he shouldn't. So he's, like, looking for that moral center, Martha or whoever, to guide him. And he's not really found it, as the sad thing is that he's still kind of ready to do it. And it's only because he's actually mortally injured here that he's kind of having to, like, hold back, not even hold back, but just he's not got the strength or the means to properly win right now.
Well, and the fact that he wants to kill him because he killed the innocent people in Pakistan, right? And
yeah, so obviously that's why he wants to kill him. Yeah. That's what I meant the whole time.
Well, right, but the fact that he's thinking about the two people that found him still, he wants that guidance, or even though he can't get it, just him showing up and talking about going to Svalbard Island where there's more polar bears than people, and it was just this isolation, and he, that wasn't enough to clear his head because he wanted to look up at the stars, and it reminded him of looking up at the stars when he was in Smallville, and just that whole thing. And like you said, it's Smallville's kind of his conscience. It's where he's going to reset. So
yeah, well, and also specifically Martha and Jonathan, I think are his conscience rather than the town per se, but like
but also the fact that the town's been taken over by Lazarus, right? And like it's not even the town that he was at for a little bit at this point. They've just bought everything up, and everybody now is, subservient to Lazarus Corp in the kind of the same way that the Kryptonians were, his parents were in that system too, right? So it's the fact that it's this town that was his first, experience on Earth. It isn't what he remembers. It's even changed since the short time he's been here. So I liked all that stuff too.
Is that a complete change though? Because I kind of got the impression Lazarus were sort of buying all that up, like, over time.
I think it was over time. But even now, like they mentioned here, I think Jimmy says it, that nothing in Smallville is owned by the people anymore. Everything is Lazarus, and you work on their farms. You do stuff for them. It's all part of that system.
Yeah, because I got the impression though that when they came after the Kents and they were sort of spying on them, it was part of it was that they were like, hey, this is the last farmers who want to sell us their land kind of thing. So I kind of got the impression that most of the town had already been like owned by Lazarus by that point. So I didn't think that was like a new thing per se. Because for a start, I don't even think it's technically that long ago. The timeline of things. He's not actually been on Earth that long, all things considered. So yeah, I mean, obviously he fights Christopher Smith a little bit. Saul's trying to deal with the bullet and get it out and all the rest of it. But ultimately, we get a couple of big action beats here. Saul kind of armors Superman up, so we get this kind of very metal armored look to him. That looks very Demon Souls-esque with a Superman logo on the chest.
Yeah.
So that's something.
I also like though that Soul calls it tornado mode. And knowing about, tornadoes in the Midwest and whatnot. I thought that was a fun little touch by Aaron here. Yeah. And it's just like, it's like his super armor mode. And he says that he hit, Smith like however many times in that 1 second, and he's still standing, so it definitely builds up Smith as a formidable opponent.
It was 1,000 times in 30 seconds for the record.
There you go.
But Smith, he's got his gun with the kryptonite bullets. He fires it a numerous amount of times at him. And Saul at this point has figured out that these bullets are like irradiated parts of Krypton. Like, so this is them sort of discovering that kryptonite's a weakness and all the rest of it. But ultimately the reason why this all kind of de-escalates is because Smith's about to kill him, and Brainiac does not want Superman dead. So Brainiac actually shocks Smith and takes over the suit and zaps him. and this gives Jimmy and Lois a chance to like get Superman up and get him through the boom tube. But Lois is left behind, and that's kind of the cliffhanger. Is so Jimmy and the Omega Men have got injured Superman, and they're going to maybe try and help him. And Lois has been left behind, and will now be seen as a traitor because she was actively helping Superman and try to like get Smith to stand down. So it leaves both plot lines in an interesting place for next issue, for sure. So, and obviously Sandoval's art, I think, is pretty solid here again. Obviously, it's nice to have him back. So, no complaints.
Yeah, I like you're talking about when Christopher Smith unloads the bullets on Clark, and we get the panels in the form of Blam, right? So he's playing with a little bit of the breakdowns there by putting them into the wording. You get the gun in there shooting the green. There's like green smoke coming off of it. So that looks cool. And then when Clark, even when he's just standing in Smallville and it's quiet, right? Like he's walking through the town and like the shadows that are hitting on him, it does give him kind of a Batman vibe, which I'm appreciating. Weirdly.
Yeah, I like the fact that the green, the bullets and stuff, and the smoke coming from his wound really contrast, because there's no other green like anywhere on those pages. It's just the kryptonite. So that, especially once it gets to the point where there's lots of red because of all the Sol like power like tornado stuff. Once you get to that, so those green bursts of light do really stick out. Coloring's obviously great. I think the opening with Ra's al Ghul, of course, is very different to the rest of it, in the sense that it's doing something very different. It's a lot more hand-to-hand combat. It's him fighting with blades. I won't say it's not fantastical, because it still kind of is because of the skill level of the Ra's al Ghul, but it's very different to all these superpowers, like, igniting and all these big effects happening around him. This is a lot more, swooshing a blade, stabbing, or in the case of the ending, dropping toddlers off of balconies. Which, gold.
Also, Ra's seems gigantic here, too. Like, the way that he's holding up those Omega Men agents, right? He seems massive. So that's also a thing, too, that he's moving so effortlessly despite having this massive size. It makes him seem almost monstrous.
Yeah, they've given him a little bit of a kingpin kind of stature here in this version.
A little bit, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like the way that he's wielding that sword that he pulls off the wall, right? And it looks like this gigantic sword, and he's just still, the way that the action lines are going, with the nice curves and whatever. But yeah, he just has a presence here that normally I feel like Ra's doesn't have. That we assume like we associate him with being like a ninja, not a big gigantic dude.
We associate him with being a bit more calm, I guess. Whereas this feels like a slightly angrier version of Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah.
So all right.
But yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, what are you giving Absolute Superman?
I'm at 8.5.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I agree with 8.5.